Hi, it's Katrina. You'd be surprised at the kinds of creatures and prehistoric secrets found embedded in amber. Dinosaurs, bugs, foliage from hundreds of millions of years ago. Trust me when I say each discovery today is better than the last. The smallest dinosaur in history. How small can a dinosaur be? The answer is smaller than you think. 99 million years ago, a dinosaur the size of your thumb zipped through a tropical mangrove forest, probably minding its own tiny business, when it got swallowed up by tree sap and became fossilized for eternity. That dinosaur was Archaeologists congrae, officially the smallest extinct dinosaur ever discovered. And trust me, this thing was weird. Not just because it was small either. Forget the cute image you have in your head right now. Archaeologists looked like a miniature mutant. Small things can be freakishly terrifying too. It had a beak crammed with dozens of teeth. Not just at the tip like other ancient birds. It had teeth stretching all the way back under its eyeballs. It also had claws on its wings, which scientists can only assume were used for hunting or clinging to the trees. Our little friend's skull, perfectly trapped in a chunk of amber, found like so many others in northern Myanmar, measures just 0.5 inches long. That's about the size of your thumbnail. And that's including the snout. Ryan McKellar, a paleontologist and co-author of the study, said its brain was smaller than a bee hummingbird's. That's saying something because the bee hummingbird is already running on minimum bird power. It is so small you can swat it like a plump fly. According to McKellar, Archaeologists probably spent its days zipping around after insects and snails, dodging predators and generally living the high-stress life of something barely bigger than a dragonfly. But it was still a successful animal. It had huge lizard-like eyes that pointed more sideways than forward, making it great at seeing things sneaking up on it. Similar to some modern geckos, this eye placement provides a wide field of vision. Except for dripping globs of amber, of course. Also, its pupils could narrow in bright light, suggesting it was active during the day rather than at night. And so, the eye-tooth bird has been added to the list of creepy creatures that went extinct long before humans arrived on the scene. I should also tell you that it probably didn't fly into a falling droplet of amber by accident. Scientists think it was already dead, probably lying on the forest floor when the tree sap dribbled onto it. Otherwise, that would have been a slow and horrible death. Hey, that's one way to mummify someone. Why didn't the Egyptians just use massive amounts of tree sap for their mummies? Then they would really be frozen in time for all of eternity. Creepy crawlies from the past. Way back when continents were still trying to figure out their seating arrangements and dinosaurs were the new kids on the block, some very tiny creatures had a really bad day. A terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. A fly and two mites got themselves trapped in sticky tree sap. Fast forward 230 million years and they are still trapped in sticky tree sap, immortalized, starring in their own scientific blockbuster. Scientists found these ancient bugs perfectly preserved in amber. I know flies and mites aren't exactly as attention-grabbing as dinosaurs or killer birds, but what has people so excited is their age. These creepy crawlies are about 100 million years older than anything else ever found in amber. The team, led by David Grimaldi, a world expert from the American Museum of Natural History, discovered the tiny treasures in droplets of amber no bigger than a tic tac. They unearthed them high up in the Dolomite Alps of northeastern Italy, a place better known for ski vacations than prehistoric insect hunts. I'm wondering how anyone even spots a piece of amber the size of a tic tac. They must have eagle eyes. The fly didn't get a proper species ID because it showed up half dissolved. But the two mites have been found to be two different species and are now officially known as Triassicaris fetale and Ampizoa triassica. Try saying those names 3 times fast without summoning an ancient spirit. And get this, the mites look almost exactly like their modern descendants. I mean, 230 million years and they haven't even switched up their look once. Some of us can't stick to the same haircut for more than 6 months. David Grimaldi himself put it bluntly, saying, "You would think that by going back to the Triassic, you would find a transitional form of Golomite, but no, Nature nailed it the first time. No need for updates, no need for patches, and no DLC. Now, if you're having Jurassic Park flashbacks, you're not alone. Remember how they cloned dinosaurs from mosquito blood preserved in amber? Richard Attenborough, Jeff Goldblum, Chaos Theory, the whole deal? I hate to burst your dino dreams, but while these finds are super cool, they are not about to open Dino World anytime soon. These bugs didn't carry T-Rex DNA. They probably just carried ancient tree pollen and maybe some bad vibes considering they've been imprisoned for more than 200 million years. Still, it's mind-blowing. This discovery pushes the record for amber-trapped critters way back into the Triassic period, a time immediately after Earth's most insane mass extinction, the Permian wipeout, when life was almost completely eradicated. Makes you feel tiny, kind of, doesn't it? Once upon a time in Antarctica. Once upon a time, before penguins ruled the ice and your travel agent tried to sell you a cruise to the ends of the earth, Antarctica wasn't a giant frozen wasteland. It was more like the Amazon jungle, but with conifer trees, weird bugs, and no uncontacted tribes. Thanks to a wild discovery involving ancient tree resin, or what you'd call amber, scientists now know that 90 million years ago, Antarctica was straight up thriving with forests. And not just a few sad shrubs clinging to life. I'm talking about towering trees, rain, greenery, the whole rainforest starter pack. The trees may have grown larger than anything still alive today. The team behind this blockbuster find was led by brainiacs at TU Bergakademie Freiburg and the Alfred Wegener Institute. I think I said that right. They went all in on a polar expedition aboard the research icebreaker Polarstern. They drilled deep into the Amundsen Sea sediments and found tiny ancient bits of amber. Each piece was smaller than a poppy seed, making me wonder again how anyone could spot something so tiny. They were hidden deep under the ice like buried treasure. Who would have thunk ancient bits of preserved tree sap would turn up in the world's whitest and coldest desert? It's an amazing find because it shows that during the mid-Cretaceous period, 90 million years ago, Earth's climate was sizzling. Think Miami in July, but without the beach parties. The air was warm enough for entire forests of resin-producing trees to flourish right next to the South Pole. These trees were absolute warriors. They endured dark, gloomy months of winter and likely survived fires, bug attacks, and who knows what else. The South Pole still endured nearly 6 months of darkness in prehistoric times. That hasn't changed. Meaning the trees lived without the sun and still grew to be giants. According to the researchers, these tiny pieces of amber finally prove that all 7 continents once boasted resin-producing trees. Earth wasn't just scattered with random plants, it was an interconnected, leafy party planet. By peeking into Antarctica's leafy and balmy past, scientists hope to figure out how life once adapted to extreme climate changes, and maybe get a few survival tips for the hot mess express that our planet is currently boarding. Now don't go anywhere because I've got dino remains up next. And now for a quick break because it's shout-out time! I want to give a big thank you to Tyler 420 Durden in Alaska and Rick Brock for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. A big, fat, juicy dinosaur tale. One hot, sticky day about 99 million years ago, a tiny dinosaur no bigger than a sparrow and covered in feathers made one very bad life choice. It sashayed a little too close to some gooey tree resin and got its tail stuck. And that was pretty much it. All these years later, and that poor dino's tail is the star of the most exciting fossil find since someone said, hey, what if birds are dinosaurs? Here's the scoop. Scientists found an actual dinosaur tail, feathers, skin, even a splash of blood, perfectly preserved inside a piece of amber from Myanmar. It's like Jurassic Park, but without the mosquito. This amber already has dinosaur blood inside of it. This is the first time we have found dinosaur material preserved in amber, said Ryan McKellar from the Royal Saskatchewan Museum, probably while resisting the urge to do a victory dance. This is a monster of a discovery. You might call it a dinosaur-sized discovery, even though our feathered friend was barely bigger than a hummingbird. The amber fossil was originally uncovered at an amber market in Myitkyina, Myanmar, where it was polished up and mislabeled as plant junk. Lida Xing from China University of Geosciences spotted the prize and even tracked down the original miner who unearthed the amber chunk. Now that's dedication. Turns out this dino had a two-toned look, chestnut brown on top, fresh white underneath. It was the feathered equivalent of a stylish tuxedo. No boring gray dinosaur here, folks. No reptile scales either. And no, before you ask, it wasn't a bird. Dr. McKellar cleared that up, sort of, saying the vertebrae in the tail weren't fused into pygostyle like in modern birds. Don't ask me, I don't know what that is. This tail was long, flexible, and covered in feathery goodness. And the good news is there were still fluids inside when it got trapped, meaning there's a decent chance this little guy was alive, flailing around and desperate to get unstuck. We all have days like that, right? It may have had to pull a 127 hours by chewing off its tail to escape. Now here are some feather facts you didn't know you needed. This dino's feathers didn't have a proper shaft like modern bird feathers. Instead, they had barbs and barbules, tiny hooks that let modern bird feathers lock together neatly. What this indicates is that dinosaurs invented fancy feather architecture before birds even got cool. Dinosaurs really were the original birds, even if their feathers were a bit different. What's extra crazy is that scientists also found ancient bird wings trapped in amber from the same area in Myanmar. This Southeast Asian country's amber mines are basically turning into the prehistoric version of eBay for lost dinosaur accessories. Unfortunately, Dr. McKellar warned that many of these incredible finds get snapped up for jewelry or private collections. So every time a fossil like this pops up on someone's bracelet instead of a museum, science cries a little inside. Bottom line, next time you're stuck in traffic or dealing with a bad hair day, just remember, at least you're not a 99-million-year-old dinosaur tail stuck forever in a piece of fossilized tree sap. Perspective, my friends. The freakiest wasp ever. Roughly 99 million years ago, when dinosaurs were still stomping around like they owned the place, a tiny wasp flew into the history books by being completely ridiculous. This wasn't just any wasp. This little freak, and I say that in the most endearing way possible, had a Venus flytrap built into its butt. Modern wasps just can't compare. This prehistoric buzzing menace has been scientifically named Sirenobethelus charybdis, in case anyone asks you. Paleontologists dug through 16 pieces of amber from Myanmar, and buried inside one of them was this new wasp species. Stuck in amber, it was still flexing with a weaponized abdomen that could snap shut like a plant. Lars Wilhelmsen, wasp expert at the Natural History Museum of Denmark, first thought the weird flap on its rear end was just an air bubble. Fair, because when was the last time you saw a wasp with a garage door attached to its butt? Then, after staring at more specimens, Lars realized, oh wait, that's part of the animal. The wasp's lower flap could open and close, kind of like a creepy, tiny coin purse. Except instead of storing loose change, it probably grabbed unsuspecting insects and then used them to host its demon spawn. Scientists can't say for sure what this wasp did because, it's extinct, but they do have a working theory, and it is utterly terrifying. The wasp trapped its victim with its butt trap. Then, like a face hugger, the wasp shoved an egg inside its victim. The victim, now a mobile nursery, walked off completely unaware, maybe, that its insides were about to become baby food. When the infant hatched like a xenomorph inside its host, it ate them from the inside out. Nature, you are scary. Wilhelmsen and his team compared the wasp's butt mechanics to the Venus flytrap, because there is literally nothing else in the insect world that looks like this. They had to leave the entire animal kingdom to find something even close. But what did they expect from a bug that lived with T-Rexes? Phil Barden, an amber expert at the New Jersey Institute of Technology, pointed out that while the theory of the wasp's killer butt makes sense, it's still a little bit of scientific guesswork. Maybe it was used for grabbing bugs, or maybe it was just for showing off at wasp parties. Nobody knows. But either way, it's weird, it's wild, and it's got more flair than 90% of modern insects. Sirenobethelus charybdis has joined the elite squad of Cretaceous weirdos, creatures so outlandish they make today's bugs look like amateurs. Phil Barden said that even after cataloging 1 million modern insect specimens, the fossil record continues serving up surprises that are beyond imagination. The giant amber flower. In 1872, some scientists stared at a giant fossilized flower trapped in amber, scratched their beards, and said, "Yeah, looks like Stuartia koalewski to me." Then they filed it away, and for the next 150 years, the flower sat in a museum collection in Germany, completely ignored. Nobody paid any attention to this piece of amber until recently, when scientists gave it a second look and realized the flower isn't Stuartia anything. It's from a completely different genus called Simplocos, a group of plants that still thrive today in Southeast China and Japan. Basically, the flower has been living under a fake name longer than your weird cousin who moved to Florida to avoid the law. The new classification is all thanks to Eva Maria Sadowski, a paleoecologist at the Natural History Museum in Berlin. One day, she overheard a retired colleague mentioning there was a huge flower in amber sitting in storage. Naturally, Eva was intrigued. She wanted to see the giant preserved plant for herself. After all, you might not know this, but finding plants in amber is exceptionally rare. Only 1 to 3% of Baltic amber fossils are plants. Finding a large flower in amber is like hitting the Powerball while being struck by lightning during a solar eclipse. When Eva finally tracked down specimen X4088, she saw it wasn't just big. It was 3 times larger than the next biggest amber flower ever found. If amber preserved blooms were cars, this thing would be a monster truck. It's the biggest, which makes it awesome. Next up was the CSI Amber Unit. That's not a real thing, but scientists did show up armed. Using these highly advanced tools, Eva polished the amber block until it gleamed like a prehistoric engagement ring. Then she whipped out a scanning electron microscope. Under high magnification, she spotted something incredible: intact pollen grains tucked inside the petals and stamens. She and her collaborator, Christa Charlotte Hoffman from the University of Vienna, carefully scraped off some pollen and started analyzing. The tiny grains revealed the species of the flower, disproving those earlier scientists from the 19th century. So, what's the big deal? Besides roasting old-school botanists, the discovery helps scientists understand ancient ecosystems. The sticky blob of tree resin that captured this flower 34 to 38 million years ago is a time capsule of what Baltic forests were like back then. They were lush, humid, and teeming with plants that now mostly live in Asia. It's kind of weird, but okay. The moral of the story is, let me think. In this case, let's say the moral is to always keep an electron microscope handy. You never know when you'll need to prove that a million-year-old flower was misnamed by a bunch of well-meaning Victorian guys guessing after a big lunch. The world's oldest mosquito. Mosquitoes, humanity's least favorite backyard guest since forever. You know the drill. They bite, you itch, everyone's mad. And now here's a plot twist from 130 million years ago. Male mosquitoes used to be bloodsuckers too. Whereas today only female mosquitoes suck your blood, prehistoric boy mosquitoes were blood bags as well. Scientists made this revelation thanks to a pair of fossilized male mosquitoes discovered trapped in amber near Hamana, Lebanon, dating back to the Cretaceous period. It was a time of dinosaurs roaming around, giant ferns swaying in the wind, and tiny vampire bugs slurping juicy blood. These ancient blood bros weren't sipping nectar or working on their self-care routines. They had elongated, piercing, sucking mouthparts, the kind usually reserved for modern female mosquitoes. Basically, they came ready to party, if your idea of a party involves blood loss. Dani Azar, lead author of this study, summed it up with some blunt science lingo, saying clearly they were hematophagous. In other words, they were obviously blood eaters. But wait, did you even know that modern male mosquitoes are harmless? It's true. Nowadays, male mosquitoes are nature's chill dudes. Rather than bother you until you want to rip your hair out, they sip nectar, buzz around harmlessly, maybe start a mediocre garage band. They're super chill. It's the fertilized females who come for your ankles like tiny vampires, needing blood proteins to make their eggs. But back in the Cretaceous, different game. According to André Nel from the National Museum of Natural History in Paris, finding blood-sucking behavior in ancient males is quite surprising. So why the big change? Azar and his team think mosquitoes originally evolved from plant-piercing insects, bugs that jabbed trees to drink sap, not blood. But then, once they realized blood was the spicier, more protein-packed option, they switched up the menu. Then they switched again during the Cretaceous, when flowering plants were starting to take over the earth. Suddenly, there was a buffet of nectar and plant juices everywhere. Male mosquitoes saw that, dropped their bloodthirsty habits, and went full vegan. The females, on the other hand, were like, nah, I still need those blood gains for egg production, thanks. On the ancient mosquito menu were dinosaurs, pterosaurs, other reptiles, early birds, mammals, you get the gist. Pretty much anything with a heartbeat was fair game for hungry lady mosquitoes. Imagine being a 30-ton dinosaur and still getting heckled by a bug the size of your eyelash. Humiliating. An adorable baby snake. Most of the things stuck in amber I've told you about today aren't what you would call cute. So how about I switch things up with an adorable baby that was found encased in amber? 100 million years ago, in the sweaty, dino-stomping rainforests of ancient Myanmar, something magical and slightly tragic happened. A baby snake, barely the size of your pinky finger, slithered straight into a glob of tree sap and got trapped forever. That snake is now the world's first fossilized baby serpent ever found in amber. And yes, it's even cuter than you're imagining. Also, possibly more cursed. You've got to have serious bad luck to slither into what was, more or less, a slow-moving slime avalanche of tree sap. The fossil, described in a new study in Science Advances, captures this tiny snake at the very start of its life, freshly hatched. There is no head, sadly, but the rest of its body is so well preserved that researchers can see every tiny bone through CT scans. It's about the size of an earthworm, or like a noodle you dropped on the kitchen floor. Michael Caldwell, a biology professor at the University of Alberta and expert snake whisperer, called the find beyond exciting. That's the Canadian scientist's way of saying, I can't believe my freaking eyes. But wait, there's more. Researchers also found a piece of snake skin from a much bigger snake trapped in nearby amber, and it still showed some of its light and dark markings. It's like the snake version of a tie-dye t-shirt. Lida Xing from China University of Geosciences was initially tipped off by an amber dealer who thought he had a piece of crocodile skin. Xing recognized the telltale diamond-shaped scales immediately and knew he had something way rarer than croc flesh. Then, in the biggest coincidence ever, right as Xing was about to catch a flight to Canada, he got another call. Fossil hunters had found what they thought was a giant centipede or a millipede, but really, it was the baby snake fossil. If you're wondering what kind of baby snake slithers right into an amber trap, it was probably just an unfortunate stroke of bad luck. After hatching, or maybe even before, the little snake got caught in a blob of sticky resin falling from a conifer tree. It was as bad of luck as that ancient Greek guy who died when a bird dropped a tortoise on his head. Over time, that resin floated down rivers, washed into the sea, and settled into beach sands, where it was ultimately collected by modern amber hunters. It traveled the prehistoric version of a plastic straw's journey into the ocean. The baby has been officially named Sciaophis myanmarensis, meaning the dawn snake of Myanmar. The name also honors Xiao Jia, the amber expert who donated the fossil to the Daishu Institute of Paleontology in China. What do you think could be an even cuter thing to find in amber than a baby snake? A Hercules beetle? A baby koala? Some sort of tiny dinosaur monkey? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. The Indestructible Tardigrade. Sick of dinosaurs and tiny birds yet? No problem. Let's talk tardigrades, aka water bears, aka tiny apocalypse tanks. These itty-bitty creatures can survive being frozen, dried out, blasted with radiation, shot out of a gun, and even launched into space. They have been called practically invincible, but you know what they can't survive? Being fossilized. Scientists recently learned that once tardigrades die, their superpowers tap out faster than your phone battery at 1%. Their soft, squishy bodies almost never make it into the fossil record unless they get trapped in the world's stickiest preserver, amber. Scientists just found only the 4th fossilized tardigrade ever, and it's a total showstopper. hidden inside a chunk of 16-million-year-old Dominican amber. Finally, a piece of amber not from Myanmar. This tiny champ is the best preserved fossil tardigrade ever found. It is also a brand new genus and species called, and I know you won't remember, but I can't pronounce it anyway, so I'll put it on the screen. Mark Mappelo of Harvard wasn't even looking for tardigrades at first. He was studying prehistoric ants trapped in the same amber blob when he spotted something microscopic lurking nearby. You know you're tiny when you're microscopic next to an ant. With the help of superpowered microscopes and probably a lot of caffeine fuel, he realized it wasn't some random speck. It was a fossil tardigrade, perfectly preserved down to its teensy-weensy claws. And when I say teensy-weensy, you know I mean it. The tardigrade's claws are 20 to 30 times finer than a human hair. If you're wondering what is so special about this tardigrade, other than its extreme age, let me tell you. Externally, it looked just like modern tardigrades. It had 8 legs, cute little mouth parts, and an attitude to survive any extinction event ever. But internally, it's totally different. For example, its foregut, that's tardigrade's stomach parts for the non-biologists watching, looked way different from anything seen before. So different that scientists had to create a whole new genus just to fit this little legend in. Can you guess how long tardigrades have been around for? I'll give you a hint. A lot longer than dinosaurs. Tardigrades have been hanging on Earth since about 540 million years ago. But while their outside style stayed pretty consistent, tiny, puffy, nightmare-resistant, their guts took a little evolutionary detour at some point. Why did their insides change? Science isn't totally sure yet. Maybe in the Cambrian period, when life started popping off everywhere, tardigrades needed to get creative about what they ate. Change facilitates change. Their guts could have evolved to more efficiently handle new foods, while their exteriors remained identical. Think of it like developing a tougher stomach to deal with the prehistoric version of Taco Bell. Maybe some food source that gave them a bathroom now emergency. One more question before moving on to the real-life Jurassic Park. Why have tardigrades remained so small for so long? Shouldn't they have grown by now? Scientists say that miniaturization might have been the ultimate survival move. Staying tiny meant tardigrades could slip through the chaos, avoid predators, and ride out environmental disasters like little armored marshmallows. Our Harvard buddy, Mark Mappelo, put it like this: they probably evolved to have a small body plan to fill ecological niches and protect themselves from predators and stress. It sounds like a good plan. Can DNA found in amber build a real Jurassic Park? Now that you know all of the amazing, juicy little tidbits of history that are found in chunks of amber, it's time for the big question. Can these preserved specimens, be they mosquitoes or dinosaur feathers, help scientists build a real-world Jurassic Park? You might not like the answer. The dream is known far and wide. Get some amber with a mosquito in it that sucked the blood of a dinosaur, extract the dino DNA, and boom! Grow yourself a T-Rex and put it in a theme park. The reality is less exciting. In fact, reality is laughing so hard it's wheezing. The sad truth is that extracting DNA from an insect trapped in amber isn't just hard, it's basically a science fantasy. And even if you skip the whole resurrect giant meat-eating lizards part, getting any usable DNA from an ancient bug is a struggle. Yes, tree resin does a fantastic job of preserving what things look like. A 125-million-year-old mosquito can seem so fresh and amber, you'd expect it to buzz off at any second. But looks are deceiving, and DNA is way more fragile than you think. DNA degrades almost immediately after death, and no amount of golden, shiny fossil resin can change that. Paleontologist David Paris explained it's doubtful that DNA stays preserved for a long time inside the resin. What he's saying is that amber acts more like a DNA sponge than a vault, especially in humid conditions where water molecules high-five every bit of organic material into oblivion. Although the amber traps the physical specimen and preserves it, it also sucks up its DNA. But don't fear, scientists aren't giving up yet. David Paris and his team decided to test just how fast DNA degrades in resin. They used beetles trapped in tree sap just 3 to 6 years ago as a sort of baseline. Their findings show that even over a few measly years, DNA was already breaking down fast, probably due to a few factors. Resin is porous, hydration speeds up molecular decay, and soaking specimens in chemicals like chloroform, which you may have seen in certain fossil extraction movie scenes, makes it worse. It's kind of like trying to preserve your houseplants by setting them on fire. It just doesn't work, which is a real shame because studying ancient DNA could tell us how species evolved, what ancient ecosystems looked like, and what creatures were related to what other creatures. DNA is a molecular history book, but to read it, the pages or DNA strands have to still be legible. And ancient bugs in amber, it breaks my heart to say it, but their pages are mostly shredded. The DNA strands cannot be read and therefore cannot be used to bring dinosaurs back to life. At least not yet, but there could be hope. Scientists say if the bug or whatever got fossilized instantaneously, its DNA could still be preserved, but that is very rare. David Paris's study found that the beetle stayed squishy for years inside the amber, which is exactly the opposite of what you need for good DNA preservation. To definitively answer the burning question of whether a real Jurassic Park will be made, I have to say no. If a scientist stuck a giant needle into a piece of amber and tried to pull out dino DNA from a mosquito, what they would get instead would be maybe some insect DNA, probably some soil bacteria, and some other useless genetic junk. But if you could bring back a creature based on the DNA trapped in resin, which creature would you want to bring back the most? And it could be any animal at all. Let me know in the comments.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to stay tuned for extra content you might have missed.
Dinosaur-era egg nests. An incredibly rare discovery is revealing more hidden clues about dinosaurs. A bird-like dinosaur has just been found sitting on a nest of eggs, complete with fossilized young inside. This bird-like theropod dinosaur was an oviraptorosaur with three-toed limbs and feathers. Dating back to the Cretaceous period over 70 million years ago, the incredible find was made in Gansu City in southern China. Dr. Shundong Bi, one of the authors of the study, says that this discovery is the first time that a non-avian dinosaur has been found on a nest of eggs with preserved embryos, all in a single specimen. The adult oviraptorosaur was preserved in a crouching position on top of at least 24 eggs with partial skeletons of the poor unhatched babies. Something happened that killed the adult while it was incubating its eggs, or maybe guarding its nest like a crocodile. Dr. Matthew Lamanna from the Carnegie Museum of Natural History says actually seeing behavior like this, where an adult dino sat on eggs that were just about to hatch from millions of years ago, is the rarest of the rare. And this is the first one to have embryos inside the eggs, indicating that this dinosaur was a caring parent that ultimately gave its life while nurturing its young. In another exciting dinosaur discovery, scientists recently announced the discovery of nests in Argentina dating back around 85 million years to the late Cretaceous period. Found on the campus of the National University of Comahue in Nequén, the 73 baby dinos would have lived alongside the dinosaurs had they ever hatched. The exciting thing is that there are students here studying geology and paleontology, and the fact that there are dinosaur fossils and even eggs on the campus allows everyone to participate. That's the best way to learn right there. The eggs were found within a 40 by 16-foot nesting area. Measuring roughly 2 inches from end to end, they are much smoother than the larger, rounder, and rougher dinosaur eggs that have been found in the region, researcher Juan Porfiri told the news. 85 million years ago, the site, known as Bajo de la Carpa, had a semi-arid climate, dunes, and small lagoons. Discoveries like this are important because they can help lead to the identification of other ancient species. For example, fossils of Notosuchio crocodiles from the Alvarezsauros dinosaur family led to the discovery of relatives throughout the world, including in Mongolia and Canada. Roman building in Israel. It seems like there have been Roman buildings popping up all over the place. Archaeologists have found the final portion of an elegant building beneath Israel's western wall, which they believe may have served as a reception area for members of the local council in Jerusalem during their trek to Temple Mount. Portions of the site were first discovered by archaeologist Charles Warren during the 19th century, and subsequent excavations during the 20th century revealed more parts of the building. It looks almost spooky, with its vaulted underground ceiling and small holes for sunlight to come through the roof. Who knows what important conversations and plans went on here? Little is left of the structure today, which once consisted of 2 hallways connected by a fountain, according to the Israel Antiquities Authority. Built during 20 and 40 AD, when Israel was under Roman rule, the building was only used for a few decades. During a revolt against the Romans that lasted from 66 to 73 AD, the Roman army sacked Jerusalem, and the reception hall was abandoned. Experts claim that the hallways were likely once lined with ornate sofas for council members and their guests to relax on before traveling to the most sacred site in Judaism. People may have also dined there. Reporting on the discovery, Live Science pointed out that designated rooms for eating while lying down were common among the Greek, Hellenistic, and Roman cultures between the 5th century BC and the 3rd or 4th century AD. In addition to being mentioned in the Hebrew Bible, these rooms were found in homes, palaces, temples, synagogues, and civilian complexes, according to an official statement. Following its desertion, the building was replaced by a pool for ritual purification. The IAA plans to open this and other parts of the Western Wall tunnels to tourists. Who wants to visit? Let me know in the comments below. Buried Tunnel. Located in modern-day Mexico City, the former Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan routinely faced flooding. To combat the rising waters, they built a flood control system called the Albarradón de Ecatepec. This system of dikes and waterways to control the water was one of several measures that the Aztecs implemented to protect the city. They had bridges and canals, and many examples of incredible engineering. The Spanish conquistadors failed to appreciate the Aztecs' engineering skills amid their destruction of pre-Hispanic structures during the early days of colonization. When flooding became a problem again, they built new flood control systems and repaired old ones, including the one the Aztecs left behind. Archaeologists discovered a buried tunnel from the Albarradón de Ecatepec in 2019. Measuring 27.5 feet long, it's just a small part of the structure, which was built by thousands of indigenous workers and spanned 2.5 miles. The tunnel contains several pre-Hispanic glyphs depicting war shields, the head of a bird of prey, raindrops, and more. Researchers believe that residents of the nearby towns of Ecatepec and Chiconautla carved the symbols. Meanwhile, the tunnel itself bears hallmarks of Spanish architectural design, with semicircular arches and lime and sand mortars. This combination of features represents an unusual blending of indigenous and Spanish culture. This site was originally slated to be open to the public. Unfortunately, due to a lack of funding, the tunnel has been reburied for now to prevent looting, vandalism, and other damage. Biblical inscription. Archaeologists working at the Khirbet El Rai site in the Judean foothills recently unearthed a small jug bearing a mysterious inscription. Dating back 3,100 years, the old inscription is from the era of biblical judges. Translating to Jerubbaal, the carving dates back to 1100 BC and may be the first solid evidence of a name from the biblical stories of the judges being found on an artifact from that time, according to the Times of Israel. Experts explained in a press release that Jerubbaal was the name for the judge Gideon ben Yoash. The inscription was made in ink, and the team is unsure whether the artifact belonged to Gideon. In the press release, lead archaeologists Yosef Garfinkel and Sar Ganor cited biblical claims that Gideon organized a 300-soldier army and attacked the Midianites under the cloak of darkness. They conceded that the inscription may refer to a different Jerubbaal, as the name was common during that time period. Written in early alphabetic Canaanite script, which has been found throughout Egypt and the Levant, the inscription comes from a time researchers admittedly know very little about. The discovery is also significant because it represents possible evidence of biblical tradition reflecting reality. Visigoth sarcophagus. While excavating at the ancient Roman settlement of Los Villarricos in Spain this summer, archaeologists unearthed a 1,500-year-old Visigoth sarcophagus. Even more exciting, there were human remains inside. The discovery was completely unexpected, according to excavation leader Rafael González Fernández. Measuring roughly 6 feet long, the burial dates back to sometime during the 6th or 7th century. It's in remarkably good condition, featuring elaborate geometric designs, ivy leaves, and the Chi Rho sign, a common symbol of Christian artwork that represents the victory of the resurrection. For centuries, the Romans reaped the benefits of the region's natural resources, which provided them with silver, healthy crops, and raw materials like marble and sandstone. They built an olive press, mosaic floors, thermal baths, and other stunning constructions. The Visigoths were an early Germanic people who invaded Roman territories as the empire fell. Los Villarricos was largely abandoned by the early 6th century, and the remaining residents conformed to the Visigoth ways. The recently discovered sarcophagus was found in a burial ground near a semicircular building, that former Roman citizens used for religious purposes. Excavations at the site are ongoing, and the sarcophagus serves as a promising reminder that there are more fascinating finds waiting to be made. And now for number 6. But first, want to give a big shout out to Suzanne Colquette Cook and Corrine Casper. Thanks so much for subscribing and supporting this channel. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe for more amazing discoveries. Blythe intaglios desert glyphs. Found in the Colorado Desert near Blythe, California, the Blythe intaglios are a collection of mysterious giant human and animal geoglyphs that were drawn onto the ground's surface between 450 and 2,000 years ago. Created by either the Mojave and Quechua Native Americans, the human figures represent Mastamho, who the tribes believed was the creator of all life. The animal glyphs represent Hatakulia, one of the 2 mountain lions who helped in the creation, according to the U.S. Bureau of Land Management. These gigantic figures are difficult to see at ground level due to their size, with the largest human depiction measuring 167 feet long. They are so difficult to notice that modern society was unaware of their presence until 1932, when a pilot named George Palmer spotted them from overhead while flying to Blythe from Las Vegas. A subsequent survey uncovered more of the shapes, but it wasn't until 1982 that they were added to the National Register of Historic Places. The Blythe intaglios remain shrouded in mystery to this day, due partially to a lack of archaeological evidence that makes it difficult for experts to date them accurately. Their purpose is also unknown. Ancient Banquet Hall. In July 2021, Polish archaeologists working in the island nation of Cyprus discovered an ancient banquet hall that was used for eating the meat of sacrificed animals and drinking wine in honor of the gods. Dating back roughly 2,000 years, it's the first discovery of its type in the country. Found near the remains of an old temple at a place called Fabrica Hill in the ancient city of Nea Paphos, the structure was used between the 2nd century BC and mid-2nd century AD. Scientists believe that both the banquet hall and temple were destroyed by an earthquake around 150. It was common to honor the gods in Roman culture throughout the Mediterranean, but experts are unsure which deities were celebrated at this site. The team hopes to find the answers through continued research at Nea Paphos, where excavations have been ongoing for decades. Nea Paphos was founded in the southwestern part of the island at the end of the 4th century BC, and served as the capital of Cyprus from 200 BC to 350 AD. The city fell under Egyptian Ptolemaic rule during the Hellenistic period, and thereafter changed hands to the Roman Empire. This city went through a lot. Pre-Babylonian settlement. Discovered in the Dekar region of southern Iraq, a 4,000-year-old urban settlement is helping to shed light on some of the world's earliest civilizations. Located just 19 miles from the city of Ur, the city sat along the banks of a stream in the heart of the ancient Sumerian Empire. Artifacts found at the site include rusty arrows, remnants of stoves, and prehistoric clay camels dating to the early Iron Age, as well as the remains of a temple wall measuring 7 feet high and 13 feet wide. There is also evidence of an ancient harbor that served both river and sea vessels, as well as the first known signs of silt-based agriculture. Researcher Alexei Yankovsky-Diagonov speculated that the settlement was the capital of a state that was founded following the Babylonian civilization's decline during the 2nd millennium BC. Nicknamed the birthplace of civilization, the region contains an estimated 1,200 sites that occupied the former Mesopotamian delta. There is a lot to learn about the Babylonians and those who came before. This latest discovery is significant in helping experts better understand these early societies. First Temple Era walls. The Bible claims that in 586 BC, during the First Temple period, the Babylonians destroyed Jerusalem's fortification wall. This narrative is now under scrutiny following the discovery of an intact portion of the wall's eastern section in the City of David National Park. The new segment connects to 2 adjacent wall sections that were discovered during the 1960s and 70s. Altogether, these portions make up a 656-foot-long continuous wall. The fortifications were built during the late 8th or early 7th century BC, but pinpointing a specific date with modern technology is proving difficult, according to the Israel Antiquities Authority. Experts are unsure whether or not the wall was built before or after the siege of the Assyrians in 701 BC. The discovery seems to clarify that the wall around Jerusalem was intended as a fortification, despite stories of it being shattered by invading forces. After successfully stopping numerous attacks, the wall was broken down by the Babylonians. But the evidence shows that they did not destroy the structure in its entirety, nor did they need to. Instead, the Babylonians destroyed enough of the wall to make it difficult to rebuild. Archaeologists discovered an array of other fascinating artifacts nearby, including broken storage jars bearing rosette-stamped handles, characteristic of the Kingdom of Judah's final years, and a personalized clay stamp seal impression called a bulla. Neolithic site. Archaeologists working in northwestern Turkey have uncovered the remains of several humans and a three-holed musical instrument dating back around 8,500 years. Residents summoned experts to the site after finding ancient ceramic fragments in the yard of their apartment complex. Altogether, the team found 11 human skeletons. Ancient grains recovered at the site, including wheat, lentils, and barley, point toward the prehistoric settlers' agricultural lifestyle. Researchers believe that they may have also raised livestock. Why not? The site likely represents one of the earliest human settlements in western Anatolia. Communities like this arrived in the region around 9,000 years ago and stuck around for roughly 1,000 years, according to excavation leader Erkan Fidan. The skeletons will be further analyzed in hopes of determining their gender, age at death, any diseases they may have suffered from, and what they ate. Once the artifacts are thoroughly researched and restored, they will be displayed at the local archaeology museum. A monk's murder. While restoring a 13th century carving from Scotland's western uplands in Dumfries and Galloway, experts notice an image that they believe may depict the murder of a monk. Found at the site of a former abbey called Dundrennan Abbey, the artwork depicts a male figure donning a monastic habit and holding an abbot's staff or crozier with a dagger lodged in his chest. His right hand is placed on his chest and the crozier is across his body in an apparent display of status. Situated near the victim's feet is a smaller figure with a gash below his waist, which appears to show his entrails falling out of his body. The engraving was likely placed on a tomb chest, according to archaeologist Adrian Cox, who further explained that the smaller figure may represent the monk's killer. Cox described the scene as significant, noting that it depicts the monk as triumphant over his assailant in perpetuity, despite the man having died at the person's hands. Founded in the 12th century, the abbey that once stood at the site was home to Cistercian monks for over 400 years before it fell into disuse during the 16th century amid the Protestant Reformation. Its identity is unknown, and historical records of the monastic life there are conspicuously lacking, leaving researchers little to work with in terms of learning about the abbey's past. According to an Italian merchant's late 13th century account, the site housed one of Scotland's best wool production facilities and also contained a stable and orchard. Legend holds that Mary, Queen of Scots, sought refuge at Dundrennan and spent her final night there in the Commendator's Lodge before traveling back to England in 1568. Today, what's left of the abbey stands in ruins as archaeologists work to better understand its past. Thanks for watching! If you'd like to learn about more incredible recent discoveries, let me know in the comments below and be sure to hit that subscribe button. See you next time. Bye!